All right, guys, we're going to recap the budget a little bit. I know this is not, I will say it again and again, this is not a comprehensive budgeting class. An experienced line producer is worth every penny for a large shoot. Um, this is not your all in one budgeting class, but you guys need to know a little bit about budgets. So you have the two chapters I scanned for you from Simon, chapter 2 and chapter 5. Chapter 2 really goes over budgets. Chapter 5 goes line by line through a sample film budget. So here are some things that you want to keep in mind in your pre-production budget. A lot of these are things that might get forgotten. Legal for a $2.5 million TV movie, 1 to 1.5% in legal fees is pretty typical. So don't forget about those things. If you're making something that is based on a book or a story, rights acquisition and optioning costs money. If you are doing a signatory with any of the unions or guilds, they often have deal memos that you can then have a lawyer review so you don't have to start from scratch. And they will have minimums that are required minimums based on your level of a project and their different tiers. Um, Music clearances. Do you have specific songs that you're going to want to do? Is this going to be composed? Don't forget about this stuff. Are you using film clips from feature films or TV shows that you're going to need to get cleared? Often comes with a price tag. Stock and archival footage. The world of those has opened up tremendously with different stock sites. You need to be careful with the agreements you use. Script acquisition. If you're hiring a script from somebody or paying your scriptwriter, what does that cost? And then on script, you want to be careful that whatever you're doing to break down your budget is that locked shooting script so that you don't go down a rabbit hole that is not going to pay off. So you have a top sheet in chapter 2 to look at. Top sheet is another word for summary budget. It's basically adding up all of the items from the other pages that there'll be an account for a category, and the top sheet summarizes those. It's a pretty standard list for film of what goes on that top sheet. Some people vary it a little bit, but it's relatively standard. The chapter made some good notes on negotiation. As always, especially as Christians, make it fair, be straightforward, and honest. That all said, negotiation can save you a ton, guys. We tend to get embarrassed by negotiation in the Western world. Some tips they had were question every price. Do ask, is that really the best price? Don't be upset, afraid to shop around. Ask for at least 3 bids if you're looking for different places. Give enough time so you're not up against a wall that you have no choice but to go with whatever bid you're given. And make sure you're collecting and keeping all the information so you don't forget what people said and who is offering what. I would say this with negotiation as well. If you ask someone what their day rate is, this is me personally. If I ask, what's your day rate? It's because I think I'm likely to be able to pay their day rate. If I know I do not have the budget to make their day rate, I am not going to negotiate. I am going to tell them my best offer. I'm going to say, look, this is the best I can do. Will you take the job? And I will be upfront with them if I know it is already low. That's always been just my perspective, and don't take advantage of people. Don't be making a ton of money when others aren't. Make it fair across the board. Ask for the favors when you have no budget. When you have a real budget, pay people real rates. So some notes on rates. Be careful of flat rates. Unless it's management, they're generally illegal to have a flat rate where it doesn't matter how many hours in a day you work or in a week. A day rate typically is actually calculated, if you were to break it down into legal terms, it's usually actually 8 hours at an hourly rate, and then time and a half hourly for additional hours up to 12. So that's where it gets to that 12-hour maximum, and then the day rate that you're hiring somebody for is you're kind of guaranteeing them those 12 hours or those 10 hours of a 10-hour day rate, which would be 8 hours of their hourly rate and time and a half hourly. Film people just tend to speak in day rate already, where those calculations should have been made, that those times work out. So those last 2 hours to go to a 12-hour day over a 10-hour day should be a lot more. Generally speaking, again, not an attorney, but weekly rates can apply to like management positions and on-call positions like production designer and director that are considered supervisor management. that can be flat weekly rates and they don't have to track hours in the same way. Got to pay attention to labor laws. What a lot of people do and what is legal are two different things. Don't do the illegal ones. Fringes, we didn't talk about that in class when we went through a budget. Fringes are things like the pension and health for unions and their union fees that go on. Also, W-2, you're paying for workman's comp and your portion of taxes. So it's not just what you're paying them. On average, if you're not doing union, I found between the taxes that have to be paid and insurances and payroll, it's about a 20% addition to their rate if you're just hiring non-union people W-2. You also have to make sure that you know what the labor laws are for time and a half and double time. Like some states, after 12 hours, it's not time and a half, it's double time. I have not encountered this personally, but the invoice fee that was discussed in the book, just to bring that up, that's if a non-union person says, hey, I'll take or if a union person says, I'll take your non-union gig, but you're going to pay me the union rate plus what the fringes would have been. I generally just don't hire union people if that's going to be the issue. I've never had anybody try to call an invoice fee that, but be aware it exists. Union people, depending on the union, can work on non-union shoots, but if this strike goes on, they're probably going to be gone, and some of them may have to have other considerations for working on the shoot. So things to discuss when you are having your discussion with a crew member to negotiate the plan. Be ready to tell them the schedule. Be upfront, guys, what the rates are. Is it going to be 8-hour day, 10-hour day, 12-hour day, hourly, flat rate because of a weekly rate, not a true flat rate. Flat rate might work for a true independent contractor. Be careful. Are you offering kit rentals? Are meals covered? How are this going to be Jimmy John's, or are they going to be, steak and potatoes? Will there be considerations for dietary restrictions? To what level are you able to do that? If you can't, be upfront. Will there be breakfast before first call? All of those things. What are the pre-production and post-production rates? If they have a tech day, is it paid? Are meetings paid? Are they expected to do work in post? And what are they going to get paid for that? What are travel days like? Are travel days half pay, full pay? How long are they expected to travel? Per diems. Do they get a per diem to pay for meals that are not provided and lodging? What day do they get paid? And what is the invoice time card process? How are taxes and fringes working out? Remember, you cannot hire somebody as an independent contractor if they're really an employee, and then you're responsible for a portion of taxes. What will their credit be and where will it appear? Is there any profit sharing? Do they have points on the back end? Are there any deferments that, hey, if we go sell this film for $1 million, you're going to get paid an additional $10,000? I don't know. Put these things in writing and talk with them. Also, is there an NDA in place? These kinds of things. That's not really about pay. That's just good producing. Some other considerations are if you're using a payroll service in accounting, payroll service, in addition to the cost of the taxes, maybe 4 to 5% for just using a payroll service. Are you using an outside accountant? What equipment and services? Are you renting gear from a production house, or are you doing all wet rentals with people? Those are things to be putting in your budget and be thinking about. What is the production schedule and the cash flow schedule? If you're getting financing, they're going to want to see this. They're investors. If you do casting through a casting director, how much are they going to cost? The book estimated $20,000 to $40,000 to start for a mid-level film for a casting director. If you're doing casting directly without a casting director, you're working with agents directly. If you have name talent in mind, a specific name talent, you can call and get their agent information and send your offer. It doesn't have to be that complicated. If you're looking for, and we don't know who we want, but we want a casting director, to find them, they're really useful. And of course, a casting director can help get an agent to actually look at what was sent if you have somebody in mind. And then there was a note that was in here to make sure that if you are doing SAG, an actor clearance happens before the shoot to make sure that they are still in good standing with the union. All right, post-production. Don't neglect it in the budget. Um, a lot of stuff in this book was outdated because it was very film focused, but just don't neglect it in the budget. Think about the facilities, who's using what computers, make sure you have adequate backups for your data. Will post begin in production? A lot of times these days, the rough cut is happening while you are shooting. It's not just a daily review, but the edit process is starting and footage is going to the cloud for a post house to be able to do a different cut, right? And then prints and advertising, moving past just post. These are things to consider. Is that part of your budget responsibility? So, some final pre-production considerations. If there is a completion bond required, a completion bond is basically a company will come in and finish the project if you can't. So this is not just standard insurance. There are very few companies that even do this. They generally cost 3 to 6% of the budget, and they require that you already had a 10% contingency in place in your budget. You also have insurance for production and liability, and there's the whole list of different types of insurance in the book. Think about your locations and how much they are going to cost you. Departments will submit their budgets of what they think they need, be it gear, equipment, purchases, especially production design and art. You need a system for tracking costs. That's where the daily production reports and the cash report sheets come in. And then, make sure you're making a contact sheet of all these people you're talking with to negotiate things. I'm not going to go through the line item chapter in depth. You guys read that, you reviewed it, we went through a budget in class. Just remember, this book is older, so a lot of the rates have changed a bit, but everything in there, other than a few things like film stock, are generally the same. A general principle since the time of this book writing is the cost per item have generally gone up, like you pay a person more, but the number of people you need to do a job have gone down because technology has improved significantly. So you have fewer people, but the ones there cost more. And then there's some equipment that has gone down significantly in cost. But, when you're making a budget, use software or template. You guys have that Excel template. There's Movie Magic budgeting in the labs. For your final, you'll be doing a budget that's based on approximate numbers. You don't really need to price it out, but it's not going to be a student budget. It's not what you guys are actually paying of, $30 of craft services. It's if this would have cost you if you did non-union but professional. All right, so that is the budget recap.